Hello and welcome to episode 53 of Driver's Seat Blog Radio. As always, I'm your host, David G. Firestone. We're going to do things a little differently this week. For reasons that should be obvious, I'm not going to talk about racing for the first part of this podcast because there are bigger fish to fry, obviously. Now, episode 52, last week's episode, as with most episodes, is recorded on Sunday night, as this is usually the most convenient time for me to do so. As we all know, on Monday night, the Damar Hamlin incident happened. I'm not going to go into detail about describing it. I think everyone here is aware of it. But I was watching the game live, and like everyone else, I was horrified. Like most of the country, I thought I just watched a man die on the football field. And after 10 minutes of CPR, when the ambulance came onto the field, they took him to the hospital. I think I speak for everyone when I say we were shocked and horrified. I seem to remember this happening at a high school football game, I think 99 or 2000. But I haven't seen it in college in a while. I haven't seen it in the NFL at all. Now, as a racing fan since the 1990 Daytona 500, I've seen this scenario play out too many times. And usually in racing, if the ambulance or helicopter leaves the track, the end of the story is written and everybody's just hoping for a miracle. In this particular case, however, the miracle is exactly what we got. As of this recording, Damar Hamlin is pulling through, and it looks like he's on the road to recovery, which is a great outcome. But I think also, the reaction to it was amazing too. Because pretty much everybody handled the situation perfectly. The players on the field bonded together, the refs stopped the game. The league decided not to restart the game, given the various difficulties it would have in order to restart the game. And again, there were playoff implications. But those are not important. And say what you want about the National Football League. Over the years, they have proven themselves to be looking out for themselves as an organization, not unlike F1 or WWE. They have had a lot of tone-deaf responses to various issues. But I think we can all agree here they got everything right. In Cincinnati, doesn't have the greatest track record in terms of well-known citizens. Marge Schott, need I say more? Larry Flint, need I say more? Hell, Jerry Springer was not only a citizen of Cincinnati, but a former mayor who got fired for, get this, paying a hooker with a personal check. The Cincinnati fans couldn't have acted any better when Hamlin went down. Bengals fans and Bills fans dropped team affiliation to pray and support Damar Hamlin. There were lots of donations to his charitable funds. Everyone handled the situation perfectly. Everyone, that is, except Skip Bayless. While literally the entire American sporting world was supporting Damar Hamlin in the darkest moment of his life, not knowing if he was going to live or die, Bayless just had to toss his 2 cents into the discussion by tweeting, and I quote, "No doubt the NFL is considering postponing the rest of the game, but how? This late in the season, a game of this magnitude is crucial to the regular season outcome, ... which suddenly seems so irrelevant." Everybody, and I mean everybody, who read this tweet was instantly pissed off. This couldn't have been any more tone-deaf if the fate of the world depended on it. It was so bad that Fox Sports actually had to push him to backtrack, which he eventually did with this tweet. Quote, "Nothing is more important than that young man's health. That was the point of my last tweet. I'm sorry if it was misunderstood, but his health is all that matters. Again, everything else is irrelevant. I pray for him and will continue to." Look, when it comes to Skip Bayless, everyone knows he's an unfunny clown and a bad troll who just likes to fancy himself a journalist. He was clearly the kid who ate worms for attention in school. He grew up, got a degree in English and history, went through several sports writing jobs until ESPN hired him to co-host the First and 10 segment on Cold Pizza, which might be the worst name for a sports show that I've ever heard of. And then from 2007 to 2016, he was a host on First Take for ESPN. Eventually they got tired of him, and he moved to Fox Sports to create Skip and Shannon Undisputed. Now, for some inexplicable reason, Fox decided that Bayless was worth a 4-year, $32 million contract. Yes, let me repeat that. From 2001 to 2005, 2021 to 2025, Bayless is going to earn $8 million per year for being on Fox Sports. Can I ask a question? And I think this is a legitimate question. How in the name of all that is holy is he worth $8 million a year? Hell, how is he even on television at this point? He loves to make audacious claims, awful predictions. He's beyond tone deaf, and he has had some of the most, not just bad takes, but worst takes of sports analysts that I've seen. He's not original, but he's very predictable, because I found in researching this a link to a Northwestern University webpage where, I'm guessing for a class project, somebody analyzed the way Bayless acts in discussions. It's actually pretty accurate. I'm going to put a link to it in the description. But if you also need a few hours to kill, Google Skip Bayless bad takes and you'll have more than enough material for several hours. I'm going to give you some of the better ones. I don't have time to go through all of them. But here are some of his more amazing takes. He discussed Blake Griffin's biracial background by stating, and I quote, "Why should I, as a white person, be able to take pride in Blake Griffin's rise because he came from a white mom?" I'm just going to be silent for a minute and just let that thought marinate in your head. He genuinely believes that Tim Tebow was better than Cam Newton, Tom Brady, and Aaron Rodgers. He honestly thought that Johnny Manziel's career was going to be better than LeBron James' career. In 2009, he made a joke that we now know that Chris Brown's favorite sport, soccer, SOCK-HER. In a similar vein, he offended many in the hip-hop world by claiming that Nelly is a better rapper than Jay-Z, even believing Jay-Z is overrated. I don't know how you make that one, but he supports an idea that Josh Freeman was a better draft pick than Cam Newton. I don't think I need to explain why that's a stupid one. He also has a long, mystifying, and undying hatred of LeBron James and Aaron Rodgers. Again, don't know how and don't know why. Now, this is a gem from StadiumTalk.com. I'm going to read this. I have a link in the description. I'm going to read this verbatim because this I can't really. I've rewritten a lot of this. I'm not rewriting this. This is just too good. Quote, "While working for the Dallas Morning News in 1978, Skip Bayless wrote a column about the Dallas Cowboys all-pro running back Tony Dorsett that called him a, quote, all-pro con man, and started with Bayless saying, before we tar and feather Tony Dorsett," which, given the implications, Dorsett obviously took offense to. So, in much a similar vein, in 2012, Skip Bayless was discussing who would he pick number one in the NFL draft, Andrew Luck or Robert Griffin III, which, to be fair, at the time, was actually a very valid discussion. Now, Bayless, for reasons that I still don't understand, theorized that since most of the now Washington Commanders fans were white and RG3 is black, they wouldn't support him. I don't know why. But in the course of this discussion, Bayless delivers the gem of a line, "I'm for the black guy." Do I need to say anything more than that? No. He called Von Miller overrated in 2011. And there's so much more. I mean, I could go on for hours, but these are some of the better gems he's produced over the years. And look, I get that people who are analysts, be it in sports, the financial sector, news stations, etc., are all going to make bad predictions and have the occasional bad take. Nobody's perfect, I get it. In sports, we've all made bad predictions. I mean, I honestly, when it comes to NASCAR, thought that Team Penske made mistakes in signing Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano, but I was wrong. I'm willing to admit it. Even people who have good track records can make bad predictions. I mean, let's be honest here. After the 1998 NFL drafts, there were analysts who genuinely believed that the Colts made a bad choice in taking Peyton Manning over Ryan Leaf, and we all saw how that one worked out, didn't we? Now, as I said, everyone can make a bad take or a bad prediction. But when your entire career is solely based on you making amazingly bad takes and predictions just to get attention, you don't get to call yourself a journalist. You can use other terms like talking head, shock jock, and clown, but you're not a journalist. Bayless has shown that he will pick the dumbest possible take on something and never back down. Now, I DVR'd the Tuesday episode of Skip and Shannon Undisputed to see how Shannon Sharp, who has integrity and is respectable, would react. He was so pissed that he didn't show up to the show because he probably would have killed Bayless. I don't even blame him for that. He made the right move. The entire media, the entire sports world wanted to kill him. Sharp would have had an easy opportunity to do so. And in his absence, Bayless gave a 2-minute long rambling non-apology for his tweet. There was no part of this. You watched the 2 minutes of it. Show me where the apology is, because it's not there. Because I don't see one. So on Wednesday, when Shannon Sharp returned to the show, Sharp discussed the incident with Bayless on Wednesday. Now, he describes the situation and gives a very good take on what happened, and he then justifiably calls out Bayless about his tweet, with Bayless interrupting, stating that he wouldn't take down the tweet and that he stands by it. The look on Sharp's face and his reaction mirrored the feelings of everyone else. He was livid. I don't blame him. I understand that. He was disgusted. He had every right to be. Everybody has the right to be disgusted at Skip Bayless. He made himself look like a complete fool. And if he had literally said, look, I had a bad take on the situation. I offended people. I'm sorry. He might not have gotten the heat that he has, but he will just die on his own hill at every given opportunity. He's a man who will say anything to get attention, never backs down from an argument, and again, he'll go down with his own ship, he'll die on his own hill. When it comes to a lot of people, not just me, but a lot of people, he has no credibility as a journalist. He's the Fox Sports version of a shock jock. How he is still employed as on television is mind-bending. Few, if any, people ever defend him. And I think Fox, he's not going to last through his entire contract. I can guarantee you that. If he makes another bad take like this, Fox will see him for the liability that he is and get rid of him. Sports media in general, and I'm not talking like podcasters or, like something like Barstool Sports. I mean like legitimate news outlets need to do away with guys like Bayless and his ilk. They're going to cost you more than they're worth, and the sooner they do, the better. Okay. I'm done talking about this. We're going to take a break, and then when we come back, I will discuss a couple of news stories. So I'll be right back. And we're back. We're going to get to some racing news now, and we'll start with a story from the world of Formula One. Formula One have no self-awareness, and they continue to defy all logic. And I say this because on January 5th, FIA President Mohammed bin Sulayem tweeted that he had asked the governing body to look into the potential to expand the Formula One grid. Can I ask a genuine question here? How would bringing in more teams help anything? Formula One is and has always been the definition of he who has the most money wins. Now, the three richest teams in F1 are Ferrari, Mercedes, and Red Bull. Not surprisingly, they are also the three best teams in Formula One. Now, if you don't understand what I mean by this, any other team that doesn't have the level of money that these three teams do isn't able to competitively perform. I looked this up. Since 2012, so between the 2012 and 2022 seasons, there were a total of 221 races won by Formula One. Of those races, only 4 singular races have been won by a team that isn't some incarnation of Mercedes, Ferrari, or Red Bull. These races are Kimi Räikkönen in the 2012 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix in a Lotus Renault, Kimi Räikkönen in the 2013 Australian Grand Prix in a Lotus Renault, Sergio Perez in the 2020 Sakir Grand Prix in a Racing Point BWT Mercedes, and Esteban Ocon in the 2021 Hungarian Grand Prix in an Alpine Renault. Yes, you're hearing this correctly. I did look this up. Of the 221 races run in Formula One since 2012, only 1.8% of those races have been won by an outside team that isn't Mercedes, Ferrari, or Red Bull. You look at other forms of racing, IndyCar, NASCAR, NHRA. I have not seen any other team that has the level of domination that these mega teams do. How would bringing in any more teams help anybody? Never mind the fact that Formula One is one of, if not the most expensive racing series for teams, and a lot of these teams simply do not have the money to be competitive, and it's always been this way. And if you want to tell me that, the new team budget rules is going to change anything, no, it won't. No, it won't. Because even if you have a budget cap, you still have teams that are not going to be anywhere near that cap. So this team budget bullshit is not going to take care of this. Red Bull's already broken the cap in a championship racing season. Here's the bottom line. Auto racing has, for the last few decades, been the richest wins. The more resources you have, the better you are going to do. This is true in Formula One, NASCAR, IndyCar, wherever. Those with the most resources tend to win the most races. That's always been the way it is, always the way it's going to be. So I was doing a little look on J-Ski, and I came across this story. This is on Ron Devine and BK Racing. Now, for those of you who don't remember BK Racing, allow me to fill you in. Ron Devine, who at the time owned, I don't know if he still does, a number of Burger King franchises, started a racing team buying parts and cars from the death of Red Bull Racing. Now, Ron Devine owns a number of Burger King franchises, which allowed him to advertise Burger King on their cars for most of the races. Now, Burger King, in 2012, just before the Daytona 500, announced a quote-unquote licensing agreement, which authenticated the paint schemes in the 83 and the 93 prior to the 2012 Daytona 500. Now, the original agreement also allowed the usage of the company's various logos. Now, this arrangement left very unclear who was funding the team, whether it be Burger King themselves and or Ron Devine. Well, in 2013 AutoWeek article, it was made clear because, according to the article, the partnership is limited to the licensing agreement with Burger King not financially supporting BK Racing. Now, when you have a team that is not, you have a sponsor that is not paying you money and you have bills to pay, obviously you need to get money somehow. And since this arrangement was not bringing in any money, Devine did in fact have to find other sources of funding for its 2, sometimes 3 car team. He wound up selling 10% of BK Racing to investor Andrew Marlowe, and Devine also had to constantly scrounge up sponsorships. When he couldn't do that, he had to take out loan after loan after loan after loan to keep the team afloat, which he did until the end of the 2018 season, where Devine filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy and BK Racing folded its stores, its assets purchased by several different teams. Now, I bring this up because I had been wanting to talk about this for a while. But on December 20th, there was a court ruling concerning the bankruptcy. Bob Pockross, NASCAR reporter, tweeted this out. I'm just going to read these 3 tweets in their entirety. Tweet number 1. Ron Devine and Associates Company / Trust have been ordered to pay $31 million to the trustee handling the BK Racing bankruptcy. The money, if available, collected would go to the bank that issued loans, IRS, employees, others that still owed money through approved claims of the BK Racing bankruptcy. Tweet number 2. $31 million judgment stems from $6 million BK Racing paid to Ron Devine, affiliated trust companies, $11 million in BK Racing debt that trustee claims laws requires $11 million in BK debt that trustee claims law requires reimbursement. It's not very well written. Judge ruled Devine didn't comply with discovery procedures of financial disclosures, so it awarded full amount in penalties. Ron Devine testified that these payments in question were often covered short-term loans, and he did all he could to comply with the request of financial disclosures. Quote, I'm trying as hard as I can to keep up with this thing. It is amazingly overwhelming. I am an honest person. Now, the question needs to be asked here. How and why did Ron Devine agree to any of this? How and why you would agree to a deal like this with Burger King is amazing to me. You have the logos of a company you are a partnership with on the sides of a race car. They're not paying you a dime for the advertising. This would have been a bad move for a part-time team, never mind a full 2 to 3 car team. But to then run yourself into financial ruin to fund a team that had no on-track success at all is even more perplexing. I looked up their averages. Listen to this. In 7 years, BK Racing ran in the Cup Series. BK Racing ran 520 races, didn't have a single top 5. They had 3 top 10s, 43 laps led, and a 31.1 average finish. That's over the course of 7 years. In addition to pretty much ruining every line of credit you possibly have, you now have to pay $31 million after the death of the team. Good move. Hope you had fun, and thanks for coming. I want owners to come into NASCAR. I want to see small teams survive, but this right here should be a warning to anyone who wants to start a team, because if you want to start a team, you'd better have the resources to see it through. And these teams are becoming much more expensive, and you probably will lose money in some capacity. I mean, if Hendrick Motorsports hasn't turned a profit for years, what chance do you think you have? So as much as I'd like to see more teams in NASCAR, what I've just described is the reality of the situation, why we're probably not. All right, you know what? I'm too depressed right now with the everything I've talked about in this podcast. I'll figure out something more uplifting for next week. I do have also a few things I might be saving for next week. I haven't made that decision yet. With that, we come to the end of the podcast. I'll see you next week for episode 54. Car 54, where are you? I'm Dave Firestone. Leave a like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next week.